What if creation was never peaceful? What if the moment the universe was born, conflict was born with it? Myths across the world suggest exactly that order and chaos are twins, and the cosmos itself is a battlefield. In the last episode, we explored the cosmic egg, that radiant symbol of wholeness and potential. Within its fragile shell lay heaven and earth, light and darkness, gods and mortals. It was the totality of being compressed into one, but an egg cannot remain whole. To bring forth life, it must break, and when the egg cracks, unity shatters into duality. Light and shadow, male and female, life and death, order and disorder all come into existence together. Creation begins not with harmony but with fracture. The ancients knew this truth. They saw it in the world around them, in floods that swept away villages, storms that darkened the skies, plagues that wiped out families. They saw it in themselves, in anger and jealousy, in betrayal and war. They knew that order was fragile, that peace was temporary, that chaos always returned. And so they told their stories not of a peaceful universe, but of a contested one. They said the gods themselves were at war, and creation was born not of serenity but of conquest. Chaos became more than an idea. It was given a face, a body, a roar. It was imagined as a serpent, a dragon, a monster rising from the abyss. Creation myths are never just about beginnings. They tell of order seizing power by defeating chaos. And in every culture, the pattern repeats. The Babylonians told of Tiamat, the great salt sea, mother of monsters. At first she was calm, mingling with Apsu, the fresh waters. But when Apsu was killed, Tiamat's rage consumed her. She spawned an army of serpents and dragons, scorpion men and storm demons. The gods quaked before her, and then Marduk rose. He promised victory if the gods would crown him king. With a net and bow, he faced Tiamat. When she opened her mouth to swallow him, he unleashed the winds into her belly, stretched her wide and pierced her heart with an arrow. Splitting her body in two, he shaped one half into heaven, the other into earth. Her blood, her eyes, her bones became rivers, mountains, and sky. Creation was carved from her corpse. For the Babylonians, the world itself was built upon violence. Order did not emerge gently. It was ripped from the body of chaos. And kingship was not inherited. It was earned by conquest. Marduk ruled because he won. The Egyptians saw it differently, but their truth was the same. Each night, as Ra sailed through the underworld, he faced Apophis, the great serpent of darkness. Apophis tried to swallow the sun, to plunge the cosmos into eternal night. Ra battled him with spears, aided by gods and spirits. Sometimes Apophis was cut to pieces, sometimes chained, sometimes burned. Yet every night he returned, whole again. Victory was never permanent. Sunrise itself was proof of conquest, won once more. The Egyptians taught that creation was not secured in the past. It was renewed every day. Order was fragile. If Ra or the priests who supported him in ritual failed, Apophis might triumph, and light would be lost. The world depended on eternal struggle. The Hebrews also knew the sea as chaos. In their poetry, God is remembered as the one who crushed Rahab, who shattered the heads of Leviathan, who split the sea and subdued the deep. Leviathan was described as a coiling serpent, a dragon of the waters, untouchable by human hands. His scales were like shields, his breath like fire. Yet Yahweh, the warrior, struck him down. Creation itself in Genesis is described as God separating the waters, setting boundaries, restraining chaos. And yet Leviathan was not gone. In later visions, he would rise again at the end of days, only then to be destroyed. The Greeks echoed this story. Zeus did not inherit Olympus. He fought for it. First came the war against the Titans, a conflict that shook the cosmos for 10 years. Only when Zeus hurled his enemies into Tartarus did he claim the throne. But his rule was tested again by Typhon, a monster with 100 heads, fire-breathing and vast. Typhon nearly ended Zeus, tearing the sinews from his body. But Zeus recovered, unleashed his thunderbolts, and buried Typhon beneath Mount Etna. Even so, the Greeks said the monster still writhed below, his fury erupting as volcanic fire. And in the north, the Norse told of Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent, so vast he encircled the earth. Thor was his adversary. Once Thor hooked him while fishing, pulled him to the surface, hammer raised. But the giant boatman, terrified, cut the line. The serpent sank back and the battle was postponed. At Ragnarök, Thor and Jörmungandr would meet again. Thor would kill the serpent, but walk only 9 steps before falling, poisoned. Order and chaos would fall together. Everywhere the pattern is the same. Chaos rises as serpent or dragon. Gods secure power by defeating it, but the victory is never final. Tiamat's corpse became the world itself. Apophis returned each night. Leviathan lingered in the sea. Typhon raged beneath the mountain. Jörmungandr waited for the end of days. Chaos was restrained, never destroyed. This truth shaped religion itself. Creation was fragile. Order was not secure. And so humanity participated in the struggle. In Babylon, the New Year festival reenacted Marduk's victory. In Egypt, daily rituals helped Ra survive his nightly battle. In Israel, psalms recalled Yahweh's conquest of the sea. By remembering, by sacrificing, by singing, humans joined the gods in holding chaos back. But still, the question lingered. If the gods are supreme, why does chaos persist? Why do the monsters return? Why can they never be destroyed? The answers varied. Some said chaos was necessary. Without Tiamat, there would be no world. Without darkness, there could be no dawn. Others said chaos was eternal, always restrained but never ended. Still others hoped for a final day when the monster would be slain forever. But all agreed on one truth. Creation was never secure. The war continued. This insight gave rise to something new. If chaos was eternal, then it was more than a monster. It was a principle, a force as real as order, perhaps as old, perhaps equal. Light and dark, good and evil, cosmos and chaos were not accidents. They were woven into the fabric of the universe itself. And this was the birth of dualism. The belief that reality is divided between two powers, locked in endless struggle, a struggle that explains not only the storms of nature, but the storms of the human heart. A struggle that would prepare the way for chaos to be given a new face, a new name, a new enemy. The devil. Chaos was never just an enemy defeated once and for all. It was a force that kept returning, a reminder that order was fragile, that creation itself was temporary. Every storm, every famine, every war was proof that chaos still breathed beneath the surface of things. Humanity could not escape it, so they learned to live with it and to explain it. Out of this came dualism, the conviction that the universe itself is divided between light and darkness. Nowhere was this clearer than in ancient Persia, where Zoroaster preached that existence was a battleground between two eternal forces, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Light, and Angra Mainyu, the Lord of Darkness. This was not like Marduk versus Tiamat, a battle won and finished. It was not like Ra and Apophis, fought anew each night. Here, the two powers were co-eternal, locked in an unending contest for the fate of the world. Every act, every choice, every thought tipped the balance one way or the other. Humanity was not a bystander but a participant. To follow truth was to strengthen the side of light. To embrace the lie was to give power to darkness. This was the first great leap in religious imagination. Chaos was not just a monster of the deep. It was a principle, a force, a will. And though the final victory of Ahura Mazda was promised, the war was long, and the outcome was not yet visible. Humanity lived inside the battlefield. The war of heaven was their war too. This vision echoed through history. When Jewish exiles returned from Babylon, they brought with them whispers of Persia. Over time, the Hebrew imagination sharpened. The serpent of the sea, once an image of chaos, began to merge with a new figure, the adversary, the accuser, the Satan. At first, Satan was not an independent rival to God. He was a tester, a prosecutor in the heavenly court. But as dualism spread, he absorbed more of chaos's shadow. He became not only a servant, but an adversary, not only a tester, but a rebel. Later, in the book of Revelation, This transformation is complete. The great dragon, the ancient serpent, the one called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. Here at last the chaos monster has been given a name and a face. Leviathan, Typhon, Apophis, Jörmungandr, they all live inside him. The adversary is no longer a beast of the waters, but a cosmic personality, an enemy with intent. But long before this transformation, other cultures had also wrestled with the persistence of chaos. In India, the cycle of creation and destruction was endless. Gods battled demons in every age, and the universe itself passed through cycles of birth and collapse. Order was never final. Destruction was inevitable, and yet creation always returned. Chaos was not only enemy but partner, the other half of the cycle. In China, the idea of yin and yang offered a different answer. Here, duality was not war but balance. Yin was dark, receptive, feminine, cool. Yang was bright, active, masculine, hot. Neither was good or evil. Both were necessary. Night follows day, winter follows summer, death follows life, and then the circle turns again. Chaos was not to be eradicated but balanced. Too much order became tyranny. Too much chaos became ruin. Harmony, not conquest, was the goal. The Greeks too wrestled with these ideas. Though Zeus had buried Typhon, they knew the earth still quaked with his fury. Though Olympus stood, they remembered that power won by force could always be challenged by force. Their myths reflected a deep truth. No order lasts forever. Even gods could be dethroned. Even the cosmos could collapse. The Norse were even more stark. They knew that Ragnarök was coming, that gods and monsters would fall together, that no amount of struggle could save the world from its destined end. Their dualism was not hopeful but tragic. The best one could do was fight bravely, knowing the end was written. And so, across cultures, humanity told itself that chaos was not gone. It was restrained, balanced, buried, postponed, but never destroyed. And from this arose the problem of evil, the deepest question of all. If the gods are good, why do the innocent suffer? If the world was created by order, why does disorder reign? If life is a gift, why does death claim every living thing? Different answers emerged. Some said chaos was necessary, the raw material of creation. Without Tiamat, there would be no heavens or earth. Some said chaos was balance, like yin and yang, to be harmonized but not eliminated. Others said chaos was an eternal adversary, locked in struggle with order until the end of days. But gradually something new emerged, the idea that chaos had a will, that it was not blind but cunning, that it sought not only to disrupt but to deceive. Chaos became not only the storm but the tempter, not only the serpent of the waters but the serpent of Eden, not only the monster of myth but the devil of religion. This was the shift that changed everything. In the old myths, chaos was vast and terrifying but impersonal. Tiamat did not tempt. Apophis did not whisper. Leviathan did not scheme. They attacked, they raged, they threatened, but they had no interest in the human soul. The devil changed that. He was chaos with intention, darkness with desire, an adversary who targeted not only the gods but humanity itself. Why did this transformation happen? Because people needed an answer to the persistence of evil. They needed to believe suffering was not random, but caused. They needed an enemy to blame, a figure to fight, a name to curse. The devil gave chaos a personality. He solved the problem by focusing it into one face. And so, over centuries, the old chaos monsters merged into the devil. The dragon, the serpent, the shadow became one. He was the echo of Tiamat, the return of Leviathan, the rebirth of Typhon. He was Apophis with cunning, Jörmungandr with intent. He was the adversary, the accuser, the rebel, the tempter. The story was changing. Chaos was no longer just the background of creation, the storm that returns, the sea that rages. Chaos had become a conscious enemy, and that enemy stood not only against the gods but against the human heart. Chaos has always returned. No matter how many times the gods fought it, chained it, or buried it, it found a way to rise again. For the ancients, this persistence was not simply a story. It was their reality. The storms came back, the rivers flooded, the earth shook, the armies marched, the kingdoms fell. Every human life, no matter how noble or strong, ended in death. The truth was inescapable. Order was temporary. Creation was fragile. The serpent was always waiting. Religions responded to this not only with stories but with rituals. The battle of gods and monsters was not imagined as a one-time event in a distant past, but as an ongoing drama in which humanity itself had a role to play. Festivals, sacrifices, prayers, and liturgies became reenactments of cosmic struggle, ways to renew order and push chaos back for another day. In Babylon, the New Year festival retold the story of Marduk's victory over Tiamat. The priests would chant the lines of the Enuma Elish, reliving the moment when chaos was split apart and the cosmos secured. The king's rule itself was tied to this drama. Just as Marduk gained kingship by conquering the serpent, so Babylon's king renewed his authority through the ritual defeat of chaos. Politics was woven into myth. In Egypt, every sunrise was a liturgy of survival. Priests recited spells, offered sacrifices, and performed rites to assist Ra on his nightly journey. Without their words, without their offerings, the serpent Apophis might triumph. The people believed the fate of the cosmos hung on their rituals. When the sun rose again, it was proof not only of Ra's victory, but of the community's faithfulness. In Israel, the Psalms and prayers remembered God's mastery over the sea. To sing of Yahweh splitting the waters or crushing Leviathan was not only to recall the past, but to affirm the present. It was a declaration that order still stood, that chaos had not won, that God was still enthroned upon the flood. These rituals show us something crucial. Humanity did not see itself as separate from the cosmic battle. They believed their words, their actions, their loyalty mattered. To neglect ritual was to weaken the side of order, to give strength to the serpent. Religion was participation in the eternal war. And yet, despite all this effort, chaos persisted. The rituals had to be repeated day after day, year after year. No victory lasted. No sacrifice was final. The serpent always returned. This endless cycle pressed humanity into deeper reflection. If the gods are supreme, why can they not end the war? If creation was secured, why is it still contested? Some traditions tried to soften the problem by reframing chaos as necessary. In Babylon, the world itself was made from Tiamat's body. Without her, there would be nothing. The gods might rule, but their rule rested on her sacrifice. Chaos was not only enemy but raw material. The victory was permanent in one sense, but also incomplete because the very fabric of creation carried the memory of the monster. Other traditions explained chaos as eternal opposition. The Egyptians never pretended Apophis could be destroyed. He was not mortal, not subject to death. He was the embodiment of Isfet, disorder, injustice, untruth. His existence was the counterpart to Ma'at, the principle of order and truth. One could not exist without the other. Each night Apophis returned, and each dawn Ra overcame him. The cycle was endless, and this was the structure of the cosmos itself. Still others placed their hope in a final day of reckoning. The Hebrews spoke of Leviathan as destined for destruction at the end of days. What was restrained now would one day be slain forever. The prophets imagined a world beyond chaos, a new creation where the sea was no more, where death itself was swallowed up. The apocalyptic hope was born from the refusal to accept endless struggle. If God was truly supreme, then someday the war must end. But in the meantime, chaos endured, and with it came suffering, injustice, and death. This raised the most haunting question of all. If chaos is eternal, what does that say about the gods? Are they not all-powerful? Are they not good? Why do the innocent suffer, the righteous fall, the wicked prosper? Why does creation feel like a battlefield rather than a paradise? The ancients gave many answers, but gradually one answer began to take shape with startling power. Chaos was not only eternal. It was not only a monster. It was a will. It had intention. It had cunning. It chose to oppose the good, to resist order, to seek destruction. In myth, this was the moment chaos began to transform into the devil. The devil was not born all at once. He emerged slowly, piece by piece, from older images. The serpent of Eden took on the cunning of Apophis. The dragon of Revelation bore the body of Leviathan and Typhon. The accuser in Job, once a servant of God, absorbed the rebellion of chaos itself. The great adversary was a fusion of ancient fears sharpened into a single enemy. This shift was more than symbolic. It met a deep human need. People wanted to believe their suffering was not meaningless. They wanted to blame someone, to fight someone, to name the source of evil. Chaos as storm or flood was too impersonal. But chaos as devil, that was something they could understand. An enemy with will, with motive, with intent to destroy. And so the devil became the heir of chaos. He carried the memory of every monster, every serpent, every dragon. But he was more. He was the adversary not only of the gods, but of the human soul. He was the chaos within as well as the chaos without. The battlefield was no longer only cosmic but moral. Every choice became a skirmish in the eternal war. Every temptation was a whisper from the adversary. Every sin was a victory for chaos. This was the genius of the transformation. The devil explained why chaos persisted, why evil endured. He gave the war a face. He made it personal. And in doing so, he ensured that humanity would never forget the struggle, because the battlefield was inside them. Chaos was never destroyed. That was the lesson whispered by every myth. Gods may win, but their victories are temporary. Monsters may fall, but they always rise again. The serpent returns with the night. The dragon shakes beneath the earth. The sea still rages. Creation itself is fragile, always trembling at the edge of collapse. Why does chaos persist? The ancients gave many answers. Some said chaos is necessary. Without the monster's body, there would be no world. Without darkness, there would be no dawn. The gods must have an enemy, for without struggle there is no kingship, no triumph, no order. Others said chaos is eternal, the twin of order, its shadow side. To erase it would be to erase balance itself. And still others said chaos remains for now. But a final day of reckoning is coming, when it will be slain forever, when creation will be remade in perfect light. But whether necessary, eternal, or awaiting destruction, chaos was never gone. It was part of the fabric of existence. This was the truth that haunted the human imagination. Order was fragile because chaos was immortal. The rituals of the ancients were born from this truth. To sacrifice was to hold chaos back. To pray was to strengthen order. To retell the myth was to renew creation itself. Without these acts, the world might collapse. The gods needed humanity's participation. Religion was not simply devotion, it was battle, waged with words and offerings. Yet this insight brought with it a new problem. If chaos is immortal, then what kind of gods rule the cosmos? If they cannot destroy their enemy, are they truly supreme? And if they are supreme, why allow chaos at all? Why let the innocent suffer, the righteous fall, the wicked prosper? Why should the serpent always rise again? This is the mystery that gave birth to the devil. The devil was not merely another serpent or dragon. He was the principle of chaos given a will, a mind, a purpose. He explained the persistence of evil not as accident or balance, but as rebellion. He was not a flood or a storm, not a monster of the deep or a shadow in the night. He was an adversary. He opposed light not by nature but by choice. He became the rebel who refused order, the liar who spread deception, the tempter who led souls astray. With the devil, chaos was no longer distant. It was near. It was personal. It was not only outside, in the seas and storms, but inside, in the human heart. The battlefield of creation had become the battlefield of morality. Every decision, every thought, every temptation was now part of the eternal war. This shift was profound. The old chaos monsters were terrifying, but they did not whisper to humanity. They did not lure people to betray their friends or abandon their gods. They were enemies of the cosmos, not of the soul. But the devil changed that. He was chaos with intention. He sought not only to destroy but to corrupt. He became the one who laughs at order, who delights in suffering, who opposes creation not by nature but by will. And so the devil inherited the legacy of chaos. He became the heir of Tiamat's fury, Apophis's coils, Leviathan's scales, Typhon's fire, Jörmungandr's venom. All the monsters of old lived within him, but he was more than they had ever been. He was a conscious enemy, an adversary who turned the ancient war into a personal one. This explained the persistence of chaos in a new way. It was not only that order and disorder were cosmic twins. It was not only that the serpent could never be slain. It was that there was an adversary who refused to yield, who fought against the light with cunning and rage, who sought to undo the work of creation at every turn. And humanity, caught between these powers, became soldiers in the struggle. Their rituals, their prayers, their choices were no longer only about supporting the gods. They were about resisting the devil. Every temptation was a battle. Every failure a victory for chaos. Every act of truth a triumph for light. The devil gave a face to the oldest fear of all. He turned chaos into a character, into an enemy people could recognize, resist, and hate. He explained the storm and the betrayal, the famine and the cruelty, the flood and the war. He explained why evil returned again and again, why the serpent was never destroyed. It was not because the gods were weak. It was because the adversary refused to surrender. This was the final evolution of the chaos myth. The cosmic egg revealed the birth of duality. The monsters of myth revealed the fragility of creation. The rituals of humanity revealed the need to renew order again and again. Dualism revealed the eternal conflict of light and dark. And the devil brought it all together, carrying the shadow of every serpent, every dragon, every chaos beast into one figure. Creation, then, was never a gift freely given. It was a battlefield. The cosmos was carved from corpses, secured through conquest, renewed through ritual, and contested still by chaos. The devil stood as its final adversary, the one who inherited every monster's shadow and turned it against both gods and men. And so we come to the threshold. From the cosmic egg to the persistence of chaos, from Marduk to Apophis, from Leviathan to Typhon, from Jörmungandr to dualism, the story has always pointed here, to the figure who embodies the struggle, who explains the persistence of evil, who takes the throne of chaos and wears it as his crown. The devil is not new. He is the oldest story we've ever told. He is chaos, unmasked. And in the next episode, we will face him directly. We will see how every religion gave him form, how every culture named him, how the adversary became the devil of all religions.